I'm not an advocate for cheating, but I feel like if you would have done it and they ask you, lie. Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review slash kiki slash psychological analysis slash commentary of Love is Blind season 5 episodes 1 to 4. I hope everybody is doing as well as can be, and I really do hope everybody is being as proactive as possible and supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I've linked some in the description. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat, I'm always up for a debate. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, give it a dislike, no hard feelings. And if you really like this video, consider subscribing and helping your girl out. So, Love is Blind season 5. It's here. Very quick turnaround. I feel like Love is Blind season 4 literally finished like 2 months ago. Obviously, Netflix is churning out this content because obviously the writer strike, the actress strike, they're struggling a bit here with the content calendar. The reality stars have not gone on strike yet, so it seems like we're going to be getting a lot of reality TV content from Netflix. Now, I've watched Love is Blind before. I'm a fan of Mess. Yes, it's a show about love, romance, but I'm not gonna lie, like, my investment has been mostly Mess. And Mess, it does tend to bring, and the mess is definitely there this season, but I feel like for me, it wasn't really as satisfying. I feel like this is looking to be one of the worst seasons for satisfying Mess and also romance as well. I feel like the people who come to watch this show hoping to see genuine romance are probably going to be disappointed as well. I still have things to say, you know, if you've been here a while on my channel, you know I love to talk. Now, usually when I do these reviews, I usually start off with my first impressions of the individuals, but honestly, the substance was not that much this season, so I'm just going to jump right into the love interests. So first up, we have Izzy's roster, and I'm saying roster because Izzy definitely had a roster going this season. I feel like from what we saw, he was definitely the one dating the most, probably had like the most women gunning for him as their first choice. Overall, Izzy as a candidate for love, it kind of just seems like he's another man that's come to a certain age and he just wants to be married. I feel like he does have a few red flags, but ultimately not the worst choice for a husband, but not the best either, but I'll get into that. So his first connection was with Lydia. Lydia is a giant ball of energy. She has said, you know, she's been unsuccessful at finding a partner because she says that she's always too much for people and she just wants people to love her for who she is. And I can definitely see why people may think that she's too much, which I'll get into a bit later. But she is definitely somebody, again, who really wants to be married and just wants to be married. Personally, I feel like she's a bit all over the place, a little bit annoying. I could see her being a wife, but I could also see her being a divorcee as well. I think it becomes very clear very quickly that she is a bit desperate, and that becomes a lot more evident as the show goes on. They're both Latinx, so they have like a similar cultural upbringing, I'm assuming, but I could kind of sense straight away that there was no chemistry there. Lydia seemed to be way more into Izzy than Izzy was into Lydia. Izzy's next connection was Stacy. They have a lot more chemistry. Stacy, again, gives me the vibes of she just wants to be married to be married. She definitely seems like a fun girl that just wants to settle down. Again, not the best candidate for marriage, I think, but not the worst either. I feel like overall she kind of lacks substance, but I could see her being somebody's trophy wife. And I feel like she would do a good job at that. And I feel like that's definitely why Izzy is into Stacy. I feel like in his fantasy, in his head, he knows that Stacy is his trophy wife. So right off the bat in their connection, Stacy is very resistant to being vulnerable and opening up. And I feel like that's pretty much what's expected in Love is Blind because it's a fast-tracked experience. A lot of trauma dumping goes on very early, and I feel like it's expected of people on the show to just bear their deepest and darkest secrets on day 2. And Izzy is basically kind of pushing her to open up and be more vulnerable, and is basically like, you know, I have other connections, you know, and we've been vulnerable with each other, but with you, there hasn't been that vulnerability there. And I feel like Stacy shuts that down immediately. And I'm personally am not mad at that. I personally think it's weird that people are expected to just trauma dump on people that they don't know on this show. Yes, they're going to get married. But this whole trauma dumping therapy session with no qualified therapist present thing, I've always just found it a bit weird, to be honest. So I can definitely understand why Stacy is really not here to trauma dump, period, but especially on TV. So like I said, she's very resistant to that, and she's basically like how, you know, she just wants to keep the relationship fun. She wants to be with somebody that she can enjoy, you know, her time with. She's not really here to be with somebody who's going to be trauma dumping her. And you know what? I hear that. I feel like definitely there needs to be some sort of understanding and empathy in a relationship. But I just kind of feel like this quickness to trauma dump and, you know, unload on people at the beginning of a relationship to like prove a connection to me, I've always found that very weird. To me, this is definitely when like the red flags were kind of appearing for Izzy, when he was insisting that she open up to him. To me, it seemed like he was trauma fishing, which is what a lot of people do when they want to find out your trauma, they want to find out your triggers, so that when it comes to a disagreement, when it comes to an argument and they want to hurt you, they know your triggers, so they're going to press that trigger and trigger you. And I kind of feel like that's what Izzy was doing. I suspect that's what he was doing. I really don't feel like he was coming from a total place of, I really want to know you, I really want to understand you. It was definitely giving he was trauma fishing. And Stacy, I feel like she's smart, and she definitely clocked that, and she said, absolutely not, bitch. I'm not going to give you the tools that you need to trigger me and have me distraught for a week. Absolutely not. It's probably been done to her before, and she's just like, absolutely not, I'm not falling for that again. And another reason why I feel like Izzy was trauma fishing with Stacy is because when he was opening up about his said trauma and vulnerability, it was like family tea. It wasn't giving like he really opened up his soul. It felt like it was just a funny family tea story that, you know, is a bit traumatic, but he probably would say it in a stand-up comedy skit. It didn't really give he's bearing out his heart to these women. So I feel like when he was like, I need this vulnerability from you, like it was very much suspicious. Eventually she does give up a trigger, and like I said, I feel like she definitely clocked Izzy trying to trauma fish, because the trigger that she does give up is that she has fear of abandonment. She feels like, you know, she's scared of love because she doesn't want to be abandoned. But for me, like, that is a perfect trigger to give up, because yes, when I don't like you anymore, when we get into an argument, abandon me. Yes, because I don't want to hear from you, I don't want to see you, please abandon me. Please trigger me by abandoning me and leaving me alone. So Stacy, she's very smart, she's very clued up. She's definitely been reading her books, her sprinkle books. So then we see Izzy and Johnny. They again have good chemistry, but I feel like their chemistry has a bit of like toxicity in it. And I feel like Johnny definitely has bigger red flags than Izzy. Has made it very clear from the beginning that she has made poor choices in her love life. She says that she's often had partners who've had drug addictions. And yeah, I feel like that's definitely a red flag. Like, you know, maybe, okay, one person who was a drug addict, okay, but multiple, like, that's your type, a drug addict? Yeah, there's definitely something wrong with you, girl. Another red flag that came up very early on is that she basically said that even her own mother has said, like, are you just meant to not be with anyone? Like, you know, roundabout saying that she's like, undateable, unlovable, words of that effect. And when I first heard that, I was like thinking in two ways, like maybe she has a narcissistic mother, or I was thinking like maybe you were the problem. So when she said that, I was immediately suspicious. Johnny does have another connection as well. She has a connection with this guy called Chris. Johnny and Chris seem to have, you know, good initial chemistry in the beginning. Chris seems like a very nice guy, very emotionally intelligent. They're both very vulnerable with each other. Chris opens up to her about him being sexually assaulted. I feel like that was definitely an important conversation to have, but the editing surrounding that conversation was just very weird. In my opinion, they had this whole montage about sex in relationships as like, you know, a splice. Everybody's talking about sex and relationships, which I think is definitely important to talk about in relationships. I definitely feel like everybody should be a lot more open to talking about it. But they edited it in really randomly. We're talking about what people like to do in the bedroom, and then we're now segueing to sex education, and then we're segueing to a sexual assault story. The editing just felt really off, in my opinion. But back to what I was saying, I do think that Chris opening up about his sexual assault was a very important conversation. I do think that there is a blind spot in the law. I definitely feel like legislation needs to change, because if the thing that Chris said happened to him happened to a woman, it would be called something else. But by law, you can't do it the other way around. There definitely needs to be changes in the legislation. And I definitely feel like it's good that Chris spoke up about it. And I feel like with men, when men speak up, there is definitely a lot less empathy, especially when it comes to the male community. Women, we can speak to our women friends about our experiences, but I feel like that's not the same in the male community. Often it would be a man opening up to a woman about the experience rather than opening up to another man about the experiences. So I definitely feel like it's a good thing that Chris is speaking about this on a public platform and help start, normalizing men coming forward and speaking about their experiences. So obviously with Chris opening up, it's very clear that he has intense feelings for her. He feels safe with her. He feels that he can trust her. But you can kind of tell that Johnny does not feel the same way about Chris. You can tell she's more into Izzy. Like I said, her and Izzy have this kind of toxic love thing going on. With her history of, not picking ideal partners, that kind of draws her in. Obviously, Izzy doesn't seem to be as bad as her past partners, but there's still that toxic element there. So I feel like that's why she was kind of more drawn to Izzy. I feel like Chris for her was, yes, I could marry him and we would have a really nice, tender, loving marriage. But I feel like that's not what she wants, really. She hasn't done the work that she needs to do, that she says that she's done. Ultimately, she decides that she wants to be with Izzy. She wants the more exciting, slightly toxic love. So she breaks things off with Chris. I personally feel like she should have waited to cut things off with Chris. I feel like from a dating strategy point of view, she should have kept Chris on her roster as, the full guy. I'm gonna say this is just from a dating angle, the dating game angle. She should have kept Chris on her roster before breaking up with him and leaving the court in Izzy's hands. I feel like she gave Izzy too much power in the situation, and she definitely should have kept her options open, not put all of her eggs in Izzy's basket and left her vulnerable. Personally, I feel like she should have waited for a proposal first. If Chris had proposed to her and she wasn't sure if she wanted to say yes yet, okay, cool, put that on ice. But I feel like until you're actually getting proposals, I feel like she shouldn't have been cutting anyone off, in my opinion. But she cut Chris off and basically made it very known that Izzy was her number one. So after entertaining these three women, Izzy decides to make a cut to his roster, and he decides that Lydia is going to be the first one to get the job. And Lydia is distraught because Izzy was her number one. She's basically saying, why not me? And he's just basically saying that we're not compatible. I don't think that they were compatible. Like I said, Lydia is a bit all over the place. I don't think Izzy appreciated her energy, and ultimately I don't think that Lydia was Izzy's type. I feel like his trophy wife is probably somebody like Stacy, your typical American white girl. I feel like Lydia is not that. She's Puerto Rican, she has the accent, so I feel like, he's very much, his dream girl is a white blonde woman. So I feel like ultimately Lydia was never going to make the cut for Izzy. And now Izzy's two options are Stacy and Johnny. He says that he's torn between the two. I feel like Stacy is his trophy wife, and he wants the trophy wife, but he still wants, a bit of, vulnerability from Stacy. And I feel like he wants this vulnerability from Stacy so he doesn't feel like he's punching as much. because you can tell he's definitely a bit insecure. Like, he's insecure about him being bold and things like that. So I feel like if he gets this vulnerability from Stacy, then he's gonna feel like a lot better about himself in this relationship. He's getting that vulnerability from Johnny, but I feel like Izzy senses that Johnny is a little bit of a mess, and he was just kind of assessing, how much of a mess. Like I said, with Izzy and Johnny, there is this sort of toxic element to their relationship, and I feel like maybe Izzy does like a little bit of toxic, but there's only so much that he can take, because he was talking about how he had this ex-girlfriend who gaslit him, and really fucked him up and stuff like that, which again I kind of felt like was a bit of a red flag, to be honest, because I kind of feel like men with crazy ex-girlfriends, like, I'm always suspicious of you guys, because in the back of my mind I'm always thinking, what part did you play? But anyway, Johnny does eventually admit to how much of a mess that she is, and she basically says that obviously she's been with people who have had drug addictions, and the love of her life was a drug addict, and I guess they ended up breaking up. She had a rebound, and she married this rebound, and then one day on Facebook, her true love's current girlfriend reached out to her and was basically like he died of an overdose. So that all rocked her world. Like, this is the love of her life. He's just died. He's probably the same age as her. And that fucked with her. And I can definitely understand that. Like, I knew someone who died, and we were the same age, and that shit really did fuck with me. So I can definitely understand how that just threw her whole life upside down, especially considering that was supposedly the love of her life, and she basically just said that she kind of withdrew from the world, and how she broke up with her husband, and it happened 7 years ago, but it's still with her. And after she says that, opens up to Izzy, he goes silent. And you could just tell, he was like, yeah, this is too crazy for me. I already had a crazy ex-girlfriend. This is too much. I thought my ex-girlfriend was bad. This is just a travesty. This is a mess. And Johnny is obviously feeling a type of way, because he's created this safe space, which is a fake-ass safe space, in my opinion. I see you, Izzy. You just out here to get people's information. But obviously it was a lot worse than he was expecting. So obviously Johnny is, very upset, because this is meant to be her potential husband. She's opening up to him, and she's just met with this wall of silence. And she can sense the vibes that he's probably disgusted. He probably wants nothing to do with her, probably thinks that she is just this big mess. So she's instantly on the defense and instantly offended. And I can understand, Johnny feeling the way that she is. It is a bit rude. You've poked me to open up to you, and now that you don't like what I've opened up about, you just want nothing to do with me. You want to discard me like I'm trash, like I'm rubbish. But I'm not gonna lie, if I heard that and I was Izzy, you know what? I would definitely need to be you know what? I need a break. I need some type of thing, honey. And I would have sent that text the next day, it's been really nice getting to know you, but I just don't think we're compatible, because sorry, what? No, you are mad. Sorry, what? That is too much for me. That is crazy. If I heard that, everything would be turned off. Sorry. Johnny didn't do herself any favors opening up like that, in my opinion. I feel like that's something if she really wanted to keep her options open, and she really wanted to be high up in the roster, sorry, she should have kept that to herself. I feel like she should have kept that to herself, and between her and her therapist. Because that was quite a bomb, in my opinion. And it's just a huge red flag, relationship-wise. That's what you did to your ex-husband, and now you want me to marry you? It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I feel like, borderline, Johnny should have at least let Izzy process what he heard, because that was a big bomb, very overwhelming, and I feel like that's definitely the type of information that you should let somebody sit on and think about. There was a lot of times in the pods where people would trauma dump, drop a massive bomb, and then on somebody who's not a therapist, and then be upset when they didn't have this ultimate, like, empathetic, caring reaction, when they're just so gobsmacked that they don't know what to say, and they're like, just say something, say something. Why can't you accept me for who I am? Like, bitch, I don't know you, first of all. I don't know you. And it's just like, bitch, these people do not know you, and these people are not your therapist. They're human at the end of the day, and you just, the maddest information just came out of your mouth. Yeah, and you're expecting, like, things to just carry on like normal. I just found that very strange. But yeah, basically, Izzy didn't even let the information marinate for, 24 hours. He basically said, like, yeah, it's over with, honey. It's over with. And Johnny is obviously very distraught. She's trying to fight her corner and is basically saying, I could have gone with Chris. He says that he wants to be with me. He's a safe option. But, I know I'm never going to fall in love with him. I know I'm going to be dissatisfied in a marriage with him eventually. That's why I want to be with you, because, we've got something real and I can actually see myself falling for you. And, I have a stronger connection with you. I have more intense feelings for you. Really trying to fight her corner, but Izzy's already made up his mind. He's already basically disgusted by Johnny. And yeah, I just kind of felt like, Johnny, just get over it, hun. Like, you shouldn't have revealed that information that early on. I personally feel like you should have saved that bomb for later, if at all. And then you now just begging this guy, basically saying, oh, I'm the better girl for you, not her. It was just, it just was not a good, it was just a bit like, girl, give it up. It's over with. Like, me personally, you would never catch me convincing someone to marry me. I would just find that incredibly degrading. But I gotta hear from you guys. Do you understand why Izzy, cut things off with Johnny? Or do you feel like Izzy was just a bit too harsh because, he was the one coming with, you can tell me anything, blah, 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 you can trust me, blah, blah, blah. And then when she dropped the bomb, he was like, oh, no, this is too much, this is too much. Do you feel like he was a bit trash for doing that? Let me know what you guys think. And what do you think about how Johnny took the information? Do you feel like she should have just bowed out gracefully? Do you respect her for fighting her corner? Or do you just feel like it was a bit desperate? Let me know what you guys think. So after Izzy breaks things off with Johnny, he goes back to Stacy to basically be like, you're my number one. I'm knocking in with you. And basically he expects Stacy to declare his love for him. And when she doesn't, he is devastated. And again, it's very delusional. Like, I know it's a fast track marriage, but I just kind of feel like the feelings that people are expecting in such a short time, you are delusional. You are delusional. And it's just kind of like, again, you wanted your trophy wife, and you're also expecting the trophy wife to be like deeply in love with you as well. Like, be for real, Izzy. That's not how a trophy wife works. It can come later, but it's not going to come immediately, honey. You're going to have to wait for that, if it will even come. And I feel like when Stacy didn't automatically declare her love for Izzy, he kind of regretted it a bit. But as soon as he found out that Johnny had gone running back to Chris to try and like beg for him back, I just kind of feel like he just, it was just like, okay, it's just going to have to be Stacy. So yeah, Johnny did go running back to Chris after basically saying how Izzy was the one for her, not Chris, and Chris was the safe option, and she knows that she's never going to fall in love with Chris. She goes to Chris and is basically saying the opposite, but in the back of his mind, he knows that he is going to be second fiddle to Johnny. So I definitely feel like Johnny played her hand wrong by putting all of her eggs in Izzy's basket, despite not getting a proposal offer from him. I feel like if she had waited for Chris to propose to her and been like, I need to think about things, and then go talk to Izzy, and then Izzy, rejected her, then maybe she would have had like a bit more leeway here. But the way that she's playing her hand, like, Chris has already clocked her. So I feel like him getting with her would solely be because, Johnny, was his number one and he wants to be with his number one. But ultimately, I was hoping that Chris was not going to give Johnny the time of day and was going to dump her, because she's been very cheeky, and honestly, she does not sound like a good candidate for marriage. She seems like a mess. She seems like she needs some therapy. And, you know, if they did get married, then she was probably going to leave him. She was probably going to leave him like she said she was, because, you know, she's not suddenly now going to fall in love with him. So Chris basically says that he needs to take some time and think about things, which is smart. And then we go back to Lydia, the first one that Izzy chopped from his roster. Like I said before, she comes off a bit desperate, and when she gets the chop from Izzy, she goes back to, you know, one of her other options. And then the beginning of the show, we see her speaking to this guy called Milton. They're both, you know, in the kind of sciencey realms. He's a geologist, he's an engineer. So they connect on that. They have good, like, friendly chemistry, but there is a bit of an age gap. Lydia is in her 30s, Milton is 24. And as soon as she heard 24, she was definitely like, what? Absolutely not. And I definitely would have been like that as well, because I just kind of feel like generally 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds, even 26, they're not really ready for marriage, in my opinion. They're very immature. Personally, for me, if I was, you know, 30 years old looking for a husband, I would not be looking for 24-year-olds. So obviously all her eyes were on Izzy, but obviously Izzy kind of chopped her off the roster, so she goes running back to Milton. She is honest about being chopped off of Izzy's roster and being upset about it, but she basically says, oh, you know, you weren't my number one because, you know, you haven't been vulnerable with me, blah blah blah. Just a cop-out reason. Like, bitch, I know you're lying. I know it's because he was 24 and you were just like, absolutely not. Which is fair, but obviously she's here, she's come on a mission to get this ring, so she's like, I'm gonna make it work. Okay, Milton, you're up next. So after that, Milton does open up and basically said that, you know, he's from a strict background and how growing up he wasn't really happy, but he doesn't allude to the fact that he's happy now. So I'm assuming that he probably is, you know, unhappy or unsatisfied with life. He also, you know, says that he has a medical condition and alludes to the fact that he suspects that he's not going to have like a long life expectancy. He doesn't say how long his life expectancy is, but he alludes to the fact that it's shorter than the average person. So I'm kind of thinking that, you know, he's definitely somebody who grew up in a strict family, and did everything that his parents said. Like, you know those parents that, you know, live vicariously through their kids and plan out their kids' whole life. I feel like he's followed, you know, what his parents have planned out for him. Assuming maybe he has, you know, he doesn't really know who he is. He doesn't have a strong sense of identity. And I feel like maybe he just feels like, you know, he's done school, you know, he was a very smart child, so he's finished school early, and he's just kind of thinking, what's next for me? I guess I would just get a wife. So I'm thinking, like, is that what he wants to do? He just wants to get a wife to, you know, have company, to have, you know, that companionship because he's unsatisfied with life? Or is it his parents telling him now the next stage in life is to get a wife? Ultimately, I wouldn't say that there were red flags with Milton, but again, it's just somebody who doesn't have substance. And I just kind of feel like, as a 24-year-old, go and enjoy your life. Like, you have a good career, you probably have a good salary. Go and enjoy your life. Like, why are you on this random show to get married? It's kind of giving aimless. So I just kind of feel like anyone from the outside looking in can see, like, this guy, you know, doesn't have a strong sense of identity and is just doing anything. Like, he's just getting married just to get married. So I just kind of feel like Lydia is so desperate to get married that she doesn't care. And she's just like, this is perfect. Like, this passive guy, he wants to get married. I want to get married. He's an engineer. He has a decent salary. Let me get married to this guy. That's what the whole relationship is. I feel like they both see each other. I don't feel like one person is taking advantage of the other person. They both see each other, but ultimately the pairing doesn't make sense, in my opinion. I feel like it's a bit of a weird relationship. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. I think they would make an interesting married couple. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Like I said, I don't know. I feel like with Milton, he just seems like he's maybe going through some sort of crisis, and he just feels like having a wife will make his life better. And then Lydia, she's just all over the place. I feel like she feels like, you know, by 30 she should have been married by now, so she's just out here looking for a husband. So then we see JP and Taylor. They're definitely, you know, one of the couples, you know, early on, that instantly clicked with each other. We didn't really see them entertaining other people. In the pods, Taylor seemed like a nice girl, but she basically confessed that she used to have self-love issues, but she's claimed that she's healed. But for me, I was just a bit suspicious. Like, I was just thinking maybe she might have some insecurities, you know, that might pop out, because we've seen this before with aka Danielle from season 2 talking about how she's on this self-love journey, but was incredibly insecure when she got outside of the pods. I felt like they had basic chemistry. I would say they had friendly chemistry. I personally didn't see romantic chemistry in the pods, but I did feel like they could, you know, blossom outside of the pods. And I did, you know, feel like both of them could make a good married couple in the pods. You know, they progress very quickly, you know, they open up with each other. JP reveals, you know, alludes to the fact that he had an abusive household. He doesn't really go into much detail, but I can assume that maybe, you know, the mum was, you know, a bit of a bully, a bit of an antagonist, perhaps some domestic violence in the house. That's what I'm assuming from what he revealed. And they both were the first couple that we saw to say that they loved each other. So I feel like for me, this was like a guaranteed, you know, engagement. It was very clear that this was going to be one of those guaranteed engagement couples. I feel like they have at least one of them every year. And then we have Uche and Aaliyah. We have our black couple. In the beginning, I was rooting for them. I did see some red flags with Uche in the beginning. I feel like he asked like an off question. I can't remember what it was, but he must have said something, and I remember having this reaction of but then when I saw him with Aaliyah, I said, you know, maybe I'm being too quick to judge. I'm gonna let him simmer for a bit, but the red flags do okay with Uche. But anyway, as I was saying in the beginning, I love them together. They both come from an academic background. It seems like they've possibly had, you know, similar upbringings where, you know, their parents are all about, you know, academic success, which they both have achieved. He's a lawyer, she's a nurse, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. They have similar interests, and it's all going well. It's all going well until they have this conversation about honesty and morals. And that's when shit goes left. This is when the red flags started appearing. You know, Uche has said he's been in past relationships where, you know, women have been dishonest to him. And again, I kind of feel like, okay, fair to be wary. But I always find like when men bring that up in the very beginning of the relationship, it's a red flag. And we've seen this on the show, people bringing up that, you know, they're insecure because their last woman cheated on them. And then you see the behavior that they exhibit. So for me, that was a red flag. Exhibit, aka Matt from season 3. So for me, that was a red flag. Like I knew some bullshit was coming. Now, Uche asks Aaliyah right off the bat, like, you know, have you ever cheated in a relationship in the past? And for me personally, I feel like it's always in women's best interest to lie. Never admit to a man that you are a cheater. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm an advocate for lying. Sorry, I don't care. I'm an advocate for women lying. Don't be telling these men that you cheated on your ex-partner. If you want to better your chances, lie. Because even if you feel like telling the truth is the best thing, and even if you feel like the person that you're dating has taken it well and hasn't judged you, men like to hold things like this over women's head. And they like to use it to excuse controlling behavior. So I'm an advocate for lying. I'm not an advocate for cheating, but I feel like if you would have done it and they ask you, lie. It does not benefit women to be honest about cheating. So anyway, Aaliyah, she thought she was in a safe space. She thought she could be vulnerable. Wrong. As soon as she admits to being a cheater, Uche just starts lecturing her, judging her, diminishing her character, talking to her like he's somebody's father, being extremely condescending, saying things to the effect of, why did you do it? Do you think that was a good thing? He starts interrogating her on why she cheated. And when she gave her reasons, he was basically like, well, that's not good enough. And then he goes further to be like, did you tell him about it? And she's just like stuttering. I don't know why she was still in the conversation at this point. I would have left because you in my business, bitch. I thought this was a safe space and now you're interrogating me like you're a PI. Fuck off, bitch. But she's there trembling and basically admits that she didn't tell the guy that she cheated on him. And he's just basically like, you should have told him, and that you should have just left him before cheating. You shouldn't have cheated on him, blah, blah, blah. And then he starts bringing up how he must have cheated on his girlfriend when he was a teenager, but he only kissed the other person, so it wasn't as bad as what you did, but I still told her. Basically saying, well, yeah, I'm a cheater too, but I'm not as bad as you, which I just thought was really strange. And it just made the red flag even more, because you're a cheater as well, but you're now categorizing like that you are a less severe cheater and she is a more severe cheater, and it's just like, bitch, you're a cheater as well, and you have the cheek to have this much vim for Aaliyah. The red flagging was red flagging, and then the red flagging starts red flagging more, because he starts saying, oh, do you have more guy friends than girlfriends, to her, like basically insinuating like, you know, should I be worried that you're going to cheat on me with one of your guy friends? Red flag. And it keeps mentioning that because this happened like 2 years ago, that was recent. So basically because it happened 2.5 years ago, he can't trust her. And don't get me wrong, people are definitely entitled to have a zero tolerance stance on cheating. But this was an occasion where this person has not cheated on you and you've asked them a question, they've been honest. This was not the space for you to interrogate her and throw stones at her. Like, you yourself have not cheated in a relationship either. And it's definitely a thing of, you know, what's that line where it's like, only those who have not sinned can cast the first stone. But you yourself, a cheater, are picking up the stone to throw. It was the audacity for me. Very scary business. And it was just a lack of empathy for me, because he could tell that Aaliyah is distraught on the other side of the wall. And yet he just keeps going in and going in and going in. And I must stress again, he himself is also a cheater who has cheated in a relationship. And I just feel like it's very clear, if they were to be in a relationship, despite Uche himself being a confessed cheater, he's going to carry himself with the victim complex and be like, well, I can't trust you doing this and doing that because I've been cheated on in the past, even though he himself has been a cheater. The audacity just writes itself, doesn't it? Ultimately, like, the interrogation just keeps going on, and eventually Aaliyah leaves early. And I really feel like he just thought Aaliyah was just going to stand there and take this interrogation and this diminishment from Uche. Because at the end he was basically saying, well, you know, I can appreciate that you're honest, but, you know, this is something I'm going to have to think about. But she was gone by then. But it was just the audacity for me. I think fair enough if you weren't a cheater yourself, but even still, I just kind of feel like the interrogation and the lecturing, you could have just been like, look, I kind of have a zero tolerance stance on cheating. I like you, but I'm going to have to think about this. That's all that needs to be said. He didn't need to now be on this self-righteous preaching stuff and making her feel like shit. To me, that was a big red flag. Big red flag. And at this point, I feel like Aaliyah definitely should have ran. But obviously, she's distraught. She's gone back to the girls' quarters. They're all comforting her. And getting her together, and basically, like, they're all basically on her side and basically saying, like, yeah, he doesn't have, you know, the right to judge you, and he hasn't gone about things the right way. Aaliyah and Uche do eventually reconnect, and Aaliyah does communicate to Uche how condemned he made her feel. Right off the bat, he was very dismissive, which is a very red flag, like basically saying, well, you know, no, I didn't say things like that, like, you know, essentially saying that she was over exaggerating. But, you know, she's standing 10 toes down and saying, like, no, you know, this is what you said and this is how you made me feel. And, you know, I thought that this was a safe space where I could open up and not feel judged. And yet you made me feel, you know, feel really bad about myself. And eventually he does apologize properly. But I feel like a lot of the time he does explain things away, and it's still like he will dismiss you 2 times first and then apologize and say, sorry for hurting you. So for me, that is a red flag. Somebody who just struggles with empathy. But Aaliyah seems to take him back, and I was like, no, I already feel very iffy about this man. Don't do it, girl. So yeah, I was hoping maybe Aaliyah was going to sit with these feelings and eventually leave him. That was my hope. And then it comes out that Mr. Honesty, Mr. Morals, Mr. I don't like shady partners has been withholding crucial information. Mr. Honesty has been withholding crucial information. And that crucial information was that he was dating somebody in the pods, one of the girls in the pods. They had broken up recently, but obviously they had recognized his voice in the pods. But obviously, because it's Love is Blind, they did talk about potentially reconnecting in the pods, but he basically was like, that's gonna, defeat the purpose of the experiment, because I already know you, I know what you look like, so I think it's best if we, date other people. And that person was Lydia. Now that was a curveball. I didn't expect that. Lydia, of all people. I thought it was the other black girl that he was talking to, because we did see him talking to another black girl called Miriam. And they were both... I'm not sure. Is Uche a Nigerian name? I know it's African. But he was talking to a Nigerian girl. Uche. I feel like Uche is Nigerian. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought he was talking about her. But Lydia, I was like... I'm not gonna lie, I did giggle a little bit. I did not see that coming. But then again, it kind of did make sense. I could see them together. And I can also see why they broke up. Lydia was kind of all for, dating him inside the pods. But he was the one who was like, no, I think we should date other people. But obviously, Mr. Honesty, Mr. Moral, he left that out. And had the cheek to go on this run about being honest and not lying and blah, 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 blah. But, him withholding this information is definitely within the same vein, especially for somebody that self-righteous. I felt like that was incredibly shady. And also, Lydia as well, not saying anything, because Lydia and Aaliyah have been basically homegirls in the pods this entire time. Whenever she's coming for, whenever she's asking the girls for relationship advice, she's asking it to Lydia, and Lydia is giving it to her. Now, Lydia hasn't really, outright bad-mouthed Uche, but she has said, some comments here and there, when she, especially with the whole cheating, lecturing situation. But most of the time, she's been kind of supportive. So it was just a bit weird. If I had found that information, I would be looking at both of them sideways, because this is fucking weird. Both of you have been really close to me, getting to know me, care about me, and have been keeping this secret, and I'm now only hearing about it now. Very shady. I think that definitely would have been yeah, I'm gone, because you just gave me that lecture, and here you are withholding vital information, looking shady as fuck. Absolutely not. Now, don't get me wrong. I can understand why both of them would not say anything, or why both of them chose not to say it at the beginning. But if you're going to come on this whole self-righteous thing, you need to be about that. You need to be about it all the time. All the time. So for me, it was very shady. Because Uche, how many girlfriends do you have? Do you have more girlfriends than guy friends? Uche? So obviously he's saying how, Bae kind of left on friendly-ish terms, and, he, kind of still cares for her, but he's invested in Aaliyah, which I just kind of felt like was a red flag. Just a red flag. Because we know how this experiment goes. If she gets engaged, they're going to see each other, and the feelings are going to come back, and it's going to be a mess. So I personally would have opted out at that point if I was Aaliyah. So obviously Aaliyah goes back to the women's quarters, and she basically is like, Lydia, I know everything. And Lydia's like, starts crying immediately. And that's how you were wrong, Lydia, because why are you crying, girl? Why are you crying? She's already, trying to butter Aaliyah up so that she doesn't look very shady. So she started crying, and she's basically like, I know I should have told you, but I just kind of felt like I shouldn't say anything. I didn't know if I should let you know. And like I said, I definitely can understand why Lydia wouldn't want to say anything at the beginning, because word spreads around, and then that could ruin her prospects as well. So I can definitely understand why Lydia wouldn't want to say anything. But I feel like it should have been said sooner than it was said, in my opinion. So yeah, obviously Aaliyah's kind of like, well, do you have feelings for him? And she's basically like, well, yeah, like the way that we left off, you know, I did have feelings for him, but you know, I'm with Milton now, we're going well, and you know, I'm not after your man. Like, I still really want to be good friends with you. Like, I'm not after your man. And then Aaliyah was kind of like, okay, cool. But in the back of her head, you could tell she was thinking like, I don't trust you, bitch. Like, I would not trust you around my man. And I wouldn't trust Lydia around my man either, because Lydia is desperate, honey. And if she wanted to start an affair with Uche, I'm sure she would. But yeah, so then Lydia basically starts just going, just starts spilling her guts about Uche and her feelings for Uche after saying that, oh, she doesn't want Uche anymore, she wants Milton, basically saying, oh, they slept together 3 months ago, like, oh, I've met all of his family, I've met all of his friends, he drives this, do you know what his favourite colour is, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. So it's clear that Lydia still has feelings for him. And like I said, if Uche wanted her back, she would bite. She would absolutely bite. So Aaliyah is just feeling very, very uncomfortable with the whole situation. And she's basically in the confessional saying like, why is she telling me all this information? Like, I don't want to know like the last time you guys slept together and stuff like that. And yeah, I would feel a bit awkward as well and weird that you're just telling me all this information about my potential fiance after you just said that you don't have feelings for them. It's just very weird. It just kind of gives the feeling that, yeah, you are going to be after my man. So yeah, very strange. But I've got to hear from you guys with that whole situation. Do you think Lydia was being innocent? Do you feel like Lydia, you know, is plotting to snatch Uche or could snatch Uche? Do you feel like Aaliyah and Lydia could be friends with Aaliyah being Uche's potential fiance, being his fiance? Let me know what you guys think. I just think it's a mess. I definitely would have opted out. So then obviously this has all come out about Lydia and Uche now. So now Lydia knows that she has to tell Milton. So she goes to tell Milton, and Milton is, you know, very shocked about the situation. Like, oh, like, this is very messy. And basically he's just like, you know, he's a bit overwhelmed. He needs to think about things. And again, it's another situation where somebody drops a bomb on someone. They're like very overwhelmed, don't really know what to say, because you know they want to say what the fuck bitch, but they know they can't say what the fuck bitch. And Lydia is just begging him to say something like, please, like, still love me, still be my number one, blah blah blah, like, oh, there's nothing going on between me and Uche, say something, please, don't judge me. Just like begging him to like just accept the situation for what it was. And again, it's just like, girl, you can't drop a bomb like that and expect no reaction. You're deluded. So obviously they go take a breather. She's explaining the situation to the girls, and the girls are being real with her and basically saying like, yeah, you need to let him process that information. Like, it's a big shock. They talk about it again, and he basically is like, you know, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? And she kept it real, and she was basically like, you know, would you have given me the time of day if I told you this on day 1 or day 2? You would have dropped me. And Milton is basically like, yeah, I would have, because I would have thought, yeah, this is messy. And yeah, he feels like, yeah, definitely it's harder for him to just drop her now that he knows her and, you know, they've connected. So yeah, I feel like Lydia was smart to kind of not reveal it straight away, in my opinion. I mean, some people feel like honesty is the best policy right away. I'm in favor of withholding information and lying personally when it's needed. But not everyone can do it. It's not for everyone lying. But I feel like if you can and it will benefit you, why not? But yeah, I do think Lydia did play a good card in terms of dating. I feel like she played a good game considering, because it seems like, you know, Milton, you know, kind of accepts the situation like it is what it is type of thing. And he still wants to progress forward with their relationship. So then we have our proposals. First up we have JP and Taylor. Like I said before, a proposal was going to be no surprise there, and Taylor does say yes. Then we have Izzy and the winner of his roster, Stacy. Stacy says yes. And when Stacy and Izzy get engaged, Johnny is definitely devastated and she's mad and she's definitely a hater. She's bitching about Izzy and basically saying how he ain't shit and how he's clearly not ready for commitment and that basically him and Stacy are not going to work out, which she might not be wrong about, to be honest, but it was definitely giving bitter hater. And I feel like after that she was hoping she was going to get a ring off Chris, but Chris did not give her that ring. He basically said, like, we could date on the outside world, but I'm not marrying you in here. Like, basically saying, like, I've clocked you, like, I know you're just using me right now. So, you know, we need to date on the outside world where we can assess things, where I can assess things better. So, you know, I can know for sure that you're not just using me because you want a husband. And purr, Chris, purr. I think definitely a lot more people on this show just need to walk away from the situation. There's just so many people that have been just so desperate to get married that they're just marrying any old riffraff on this show. So per Chris, I'm definitely here for you having standards for yourself. I feel like you need to up it up a notch and just drop Johnny completely, you know, and find somebody else. Then we have Milton and Lydia. Lydia says yes. I was surprised that Milton did propose to Lydia. I kind of felt like maybe the whole Uche and Lydia revelation might put him off Lydia. Even though, you know, they kind of moved on from that situation. I kind of felt like he was just going to be like, yeah, like in hindsight, I don't think it's going to work. But, you know, Lydia definitely, you know, she's a salesperson. She should definitely work in sales because I can see her being very persuasive, very convincing, like the desperation is very much like, pick me, choose me, love me. And it seemed to work for her because Milton picked her, chose her, and proposed to her, and she said yes. I feel like Lydia is crazy, but I kind of love her. I'm kind of here for this pairing. I kind of want to see how it works out, to be honest. And then we have Uche and Aaliyah. Now, Uche goes to propose to Aaliyah, but Aaliyah is not in the pods. And it turns out that Aaliyah has packed her bags and she's gone home. She said, absolutely not. She was definitely simmering, collating all the red flags that Uche has together and definitely said absolutely not. And per Aaliyah, definitely per Aaliyah, because Uche is definitely giving red flags. And if he's Nigerian like I think he is, I feel like that was a good choice, sister. I feel like that was a good choice, sister. Run far away. And then for the first meets, we only see two of them. We see JP and Taylor. And when they meet, the chemistry is a bit stiff. There's not really much chemistry there. It's a bit forced. Like, they're kissing. You know, JP's going in for it. Taylor's kind of scrunching up her face. And it was given like she's processing his face, not entirely sure she likes what she sees, and then he's coming, you know, in her face kissing and she's not prepared. It was given that. And, you know, when they were on the bench talking, her body language is just very stiff. It's very much giving first date. You're on this first date where, you know, normally you're a very superficial person, but, you know, you're seeing all the girlies saying date the medium uglies, date the average looking men, and then you go on the date and the spark isn't there and you're just like and you're just stiff as a board whenever they come near you. It's definitely giving that. And then the confessional, she does basically say like she's not initially attracted to, there is no initial attraction for her, but she feels like it could come with time. I don't know though. I feel like there's definitely situations where, you know, the attraction could come with time. But at the very least, you would still have, you know, the friendly chemistry. I mean, again, this is all happening on TV as well. So it's kind of like you're seeing the stranger. There's all these cameras here, the producers there, the researchers there. So it could be nervousness from there, like where you feel like you can't really, you have to put a face on. So that could add to the stiffness. But I don't know. I feel like the fact that she said in the confessional she's not initially attracted to him, but she can see where it goes. Maybe the attraction thing might become an issue down the line. That's what I'm suspecting. But who knows? She could get over it. You know. Let me know what you think. Do you think Taylor can get over this, superficial thing? Or not? Let me know. But I feel like if she does get over it, I feel like they would make a really good pairing. And then we see Stacy and Izzy, and I feel like there was definitely chemistry there. Like I said, Izzy was hoping Stacy was going to be his trophy wife, and I feel like he was very satisfied with how Stacy looked. You could tell that he's very much ready to disrobe her, and he's definitely happy with his option. You can definitely tell that Izzy is definitely more into Stacy than Stacy's into him, but I do feel like there is an attraction there from Stacy. She's happy with her choice. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out, because like I said, Izzy feels like he's punching with Stacy, so he kind of needs to like knock her down a peg so that he doesn't feel as insecure about that. So I'm interested to see how this relationship dynamic pans out, because Stacy, like I said, I feel like Stacy definitely knows the game. She peeped the game. And I definitely feel like Izzy is definitely going to try and run game on her. So I'm interested to see this dynamic. And that was episodes 1 to 4 done with. Like I said, for me personally, yes, there was drama there, but the drama wasn't that satisfying. And overall, the watch was quite boring, very much background noise. I was watching it on 2x speed and it was still boring. In terms of the couplings, I cannot take any of these couplings serious. I'm strictly looking at this from an experimental point of view. I think we have some very interesting couples, some interesting individuals coming together. I'm interested to see how they work in the real life. From the trailer, it seems like there's going to be a lot of problems. People having feelings for multiple people is going to become an issue again this season, more so than the other seasons, it seems like, because it seems like there's like more than one couple involved. We have more kind of couples that didn't get engaged in the pods but meeting up after the pods, situations going on. Obviously, we're going to see the reasons that Aaliyah gives as to why she kind of left Uche high and dry. Will they get back together? Will they reconnect? I hope not. On the trailer, it seems that Milton's family are suspicious of Lydia. And I'm not going to lie, if I was Milton's family, I would be suspicious of Lydia as well, because it does look a bit strange. It does look a bit strange. And I feel like when they meet her, she's this big ball of energy, just saying like, I feel like she will probably just say anything that anybody wants to hear. She's definitely giving those vibes, and they're just going to feel like, this lady is a scammer. The family are automatically going to question Lydia's motives, and I definitely would as well. But I'd be interested to see if Lydia can, win the family over, because like I said, she's very persuasive, She puts on a performance. So, I'm here to see that, to be honest. Like I said before, like with Izzy and Stacy, they look like they've got some drama going on in the trailer. Stacy's calling him a fuckboy. So like I said, I feel like Izzy's definitely going to try and run some game on Stacy. I want to see how Stacy reacts. So that's what I'm looking forward to in terms of mess. In terms of marriage, I just feel like you never know on this show, because sometimes I've predicted that people weren't going to get married and they ended up getting married. You can never underestimate the desperation of people to get married. So who knows? But right now, I think the only people right now at this point in time that I could see potentially saying yes is probably JP and Taylor, if Taylor gets over this superficial thing. That's the only couple that I can see marrying. Potentially Lydia and Milton, if Lydia plays her hand right. But I don't see Izzy and Stacy marrying at this point in time. I'd have to see what happens in the next set of episodes. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of this season so far? What do you guys think of the individuals? What do you think about the things that have happened? And as always, let me know what you thought about my commentary. In terms of what's happening next on my channel, I might react to the next batch of episodes. I'm undecided yet, but if I do, I'm going on holiday, so the episodes would potentially be out next weekend. So make sure to put my notifications on. I'm also going to be uploading more of my reality TV Patreon reactions. So my Ultimatum Season 1 reactions are the ones coming up next. If you want me to react to anything specific, you can send me a request on Patreon. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you haven't, don't forget to put my notification bells on so you know my next video is dropping. I'm also trying to get to 3.7k subscribers. That's my next short-term goal, and I'd appreciate if you help me hit that. And thank you to everybody who's subscribed to my channel so far. Thank you to everybody who's taken the extra step to sign up to my Patreon. It really means a lot to me. Till next time, guys. Bye.